Good afternoon.
Happy Sabbath. Welcome to the Easy Network AY special. We praise God and we thank Him for all that He has done for us throughout this year.
Thank you for tuning in from the north, the Midlands and the south to join our special program this afternoon. We would like to extend a very special welcome to our guests from heaven.
Featuring in our AY special will be songs, news from around the world, lessons from nature, Bible knowledge quizzes and health tips. And of course there will be a special time set aside for all of us to pray together. It is our sincere prayer that you will all be blessed by the end of our AY special. Welcome.
Before we go any further with our program, we would like to seek guidance from the Holy Spirit, and Luke will be leading us out in that.
Our feature story this afternoon is based in Citadel of Sushan in Persia, as mentioned in the Book of Esther. Did you know that the Book of Esther is one of
2 books in the Bible named for women. The other is the Book of Ruth.
Also, the Book of Esther is one of 2 books in the entire Bible that doesn't actually mention God. The other is Song of Solomon's.
Even though God's name is not mentioned in the Book of Esther, God's sovereignty and loving care are woven throughout the words and chapters.
We will start off our feature with a special music and song.
You are my strength when I am weak. You are the treasure that I seek. You are my all in all.
Seeing you as a precious jewel, Lord, to give up, I'd be a fool. You are my all in all.
Jesus, Lamb of God, worthy is your name. Jesus, Lamb of God, worthy is your name.
Taking my sin, my cross, my shame, rising again, I bless your name. You are my all in all.
When I fall down, you pick me up. When I am dry, you fill my cup. You are my all in all. Jesus, Lamb of God, worthy is your name. Jesus, Lamb of God, worthy is your name. Jesus, Lamb of God, worthy is your name. Jesus, Lamb of God, worthy is your name.
Welcome back. We have some breaking news coming in from the Citadel of Sushan. Let us go over to our reporter Luigi, who's in the Citadel right now.
Good afternoon. I'm here in the citadel of Sushan, where some very interesting developments have been happening here since King Ahasuerus removed Queen Vashti from the throne. The king has commanded and sent a decree for all the beautiful young virgins from all provinces of the Persian kingdom to be brought to Sushan and beauty preparations be given them for a year. The king would then choose the woman who pleases him the most to be the next queen. So right now, as we speak, more and more beautiful young women are being brought in from around the kingdom of Persia to the king's palace.
Well, thank you, Luigi, for the update. This is some interesting news. It won't be long before the Citadel of Sushan crowns her next queen. In the meantime, we have got a certain Jew called Mordecai. Our reporter Luigi spoke to Mordecai and found out his cousin's sister was one of many young women taken into the king's palace.
Hello, I have here with me Mordecai, the son of Jair, the son of Shimei, the son of Kish, a Benjamite. Mordecai, I understand that one of the young women taken to the king's palace is your cousin Esther.
Yes, Hadassah, I mean Esther. Sorry, Hadassah is Esther's Hebrew name, and that's what we call her by in our home.
That's all right. We now know that Esther is a Jew and has a Hebrew name. Anyway, carry on.
When my uncle Abhil and aunt died, Esther had no one to look after her, so I took her on as my own daughter. She had grown up into a lovely and beautiful young woman, and one who loved the Lord. When she was taken along with the other young women, I said to her not to reveal to anyone that she is a Jew.
Why would you say to Esther not to reveal her true identity?
You see, the Jews have been a minority in Persia for years. We have suffered so much racial hatred. I wanted to protect Esther. I have been walking back and forth in front of the court of the women's quarters, just hoping and listening out for any news of Esther and what was happening to her.
Thank you, Mordecai, for sharing this piece of information with us. Hope all will go well for Esther.
Thank you.
Well, one thing we do know for sure, one of the beautiful young women undergoing beauty preparations in the king's palace is a Jew. The people in the palace and the whole of Persia don't even know that Esther is a Jew.
We will not take a break before continuing on with our breaking story from Shushan. Kayla and I have been out looking at the world around us. We focused especially on nature, and now we see God's message in nature. Let's have a look. Welcome back to Easy Network AY Special. It has been a year since we last ran the story of the Citadel of Shushan. It has been a year now the beautiful young women have been getting beauty treatments in the king's palace.
What do we know so far?
But what we know is that the 12 months of beauty preparations include 6 months of treatments of oil mirror and 6 months of perfume and makeup. I would love to be pampered for a whole year. Let's go over to Shushan and find out from Luigi latest happenings at the palace.
Hello, I have here with me Haggai from the palace. Haggai is a custodian of all the young women who were taken to the king's palace. So, Haggai, you've worked with all these young women for 12 months, so I'm sure you know a lot more about all of these young women than us.
Yes. It has been a very busy year for us pampering all these young women to get them ready to see the king. When you spend that as much time as them, you get to know them better.
Is it true that when they're all prepared, each young woman will be given whatever she desired with her from the women's quarters to the king's palace?
Yes, that is true.
So what is this process of going into the king involve?
Well, when it's her turn, the young woman would go before the king in the evening, and in the morning she returns and goes to the second house of the woman. When she would not go to the king again unless the king is delighted in her and calls her by her name. Many of the young women have already gone to see the king, but many have returned to the second house. There, they'll wait until their name is called.
Thank you for clarifying that, Haggai. Do you have anyone in particular that you would put your money on? Someone who you think will become the next Queen of Persia?
Well, out of the many young women that were brought here a year ago, one in particular stood out. There was one about Esther that made her so different from the other young women. She was just so beautiful inside and out.
Hang on, did you say Esther?
Yes, she's not only won our favor, but also won the favor of many of the others that saw her. I liked her so much that even I gave her extra beauty preparations besides the allowance they were given by the palace. I also gave her the best maidservant from the palace and moved her to the best place in the house of the woman.
Thank you, Haggai, for giving us an insight to what is involved in the process of selection of the new Queen of Persia.
We remember Esther, Mordecai spoke to Luigi 12 months ago and told us a little about Esther, or Hadassah, as he calls her.
Remember how he said that he told Esther specifically not to reveal her family or her people?
I wonder how the king and the people would react if they found out who she really is.
Speaking of Esther, has she been in to see the king yet? Let's hear from our news reporter in Shushan, Luigi.
No, as far as I know, Esther has not been to present herself before the king yet. Oh, hold on. My reliable sources from within the palace have just confirmed that it is Esther's day today, and Esther has just left the women's quarters to go see the king. We will not know the outcome until tomorrow.
Thank you, Luigi. Now, that is some exciting news. Woohoo! Go Esther!
We will now listen to some music that have just been released, and then we will be back tomorrow to catch up with our feature story from the Citadel. Good afternoon and welcome back to our show.
We have some breaking news. Let us join our reporter in the Citadel of Shushan. Over to you, Luigi.
Well, something extraordinary has happened. As we know, Esther had gone to see the king in the royal palace last night to present herself. It turned out that the king loved Esther more than all the other women, and she obtained grace and favor in the king's eyes. So he set the royal crown upon her head and made her queen.
Thank you, Luigi. We have a new queen in Persia, Queen Esther.
Oh, hold on. We have word coming in just now that the king has proclaimed a holiday in all the provinces of Persia, and there is going to be a great feast. He called it the Feast of Esther.
Wow, Esther, Queen of Persia. Who knew a little Jewish orphan girl would become a queen of Persia? Now is the time in our show where we get to test your knowledge of the Bible. We will hand you over to Luke and Oscar.
Thank you, Oscar and Luke, for putting to test our knowledge of the Bible. For such a time as this, we certainly need to know our Bibles.
Back to our feature story from the Citadel of Shushan. There has been an attempt to kill the king Ahasuerus by two of his eunuchs, Bigthan and Teresh. But their plans are foiled. Mordecai, the Jew, overheard their plans and made the matter known to the queen, who then informed the king. Bigthan and Teresh were found guilty after investigation, and both were hanged on gallows.
Another development in Shushan has come into light. A certain Agagite, Haman, has gone to the king to have a decree signed to kill all the Jews.
What do we know of this Haman? What is this decree? We are talking of genocide.
Luigi?
The background to this foiled plan involved Mordecai the Jew again. Haman was promoted by the king himself and is set above all the princes who were with him. Because of his high status, Haman would have all the king's servants who were within the king's gate bow to him and pay homage to him daily. But Mordecai would not bow or pay homage to Haman. This enraged Haman so much, and when he found out that Mordecai was a Jew, he wanted to destroy all the Jews throughout Persia.
We have here footage of Haman's speech to the king, taken by one of our reliable sources within the king's court.
O king, there is a certain people scattered and dispersed among people in all the provinces of the kingdom. Their law are different from all the other peoples, and they do not keep the king's laws. Therefore, it is not fitting for the king to let them remain. If it pleases the king, let the decree be written that they be destroyed, and I will pay 10,000 talents of silver into the hands of those who do the work, to bring it into the king's treasures.
Our sources from within the palace have also confirmed that the king has given his signet ring from his hand to Haman and said that Haman can do as he pleased.
As we speak, letters were sent out to all the king's provinces to destroy, to kill, and to wipe out all the Jews, both young and old, little children and women, and plunder all their possessions in one day, on the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month of Adar.
This is not good. The whole citadel of Shushan is confused. They don't understand why this is happening. Let us take a break and hear from Saki and Peter about what other events happening out there in the world recently.
Happy Sabbath everyone, and I'll be presenting the world news. More countries have banned arrivals from the UK because of concerns of the spread of a new variant of coronavirus. On Sunday evening, France shut its borders with the UK for 48 hours, meaning no lorries or ferries could sail from Port Dover. The rapid speed of a new variant of coronavirus has been blamed for introduction of strict Tier 4 mixing rules for millions of people, harsh restrictions on mixing at Christmas in England, Scotland and in Wales, and other countries placing the UK on travel ban. A German court has jailed a far-right gunman for life for his deadly attack on a synagogue in the eastern city of Halle last year. Stephen Ballard, 28, shot and killed a female passerby and a man at a kebab shop after failing to break into a synagogue on the 9th of October 2019. It nearly became Germany's worst anti-Semitic atrocity since Nazi era. Ballard expressed no remorse for the attack on the synagogue.
US President-elect Joe Biden has introduced his climate team and energy team, saying they will lead an ambitious plan to combat climate change. Mr. Biden has vowed to make the issue a top priority in an agenda that reverses many of Trump's administration policies. Black Lives Matter activists and celebrities have written to Nigeria's president demanding justice over treatment of people during protests against police brutality. Witnesses say that they saw soldiers open fire on protesters at a toll gate in wealthy Lagos, suburb of Lekki, on 20 October. So our final Bible verse that we'll be reading for the world news comes from Joshua 1 verse 9, and it says, "Do not be afraid, do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go." So Esther gives us a great example of this
Bible verse because when she went to the king and while the king was having a meeting, she could have died if the king didn't hold out his golden scepter, but she knows that God will be with her and guide her through all the decisions that she makes. Happy Sabbath.
Welcome back. We have been told that in every province where the king's command and decree arrived, there was great mourning among the Jews, with fasting and weeping and wailing, and many lay in sackcloth and ashes.
We also have a situation in front of the king's gate. Mordecai the Jew has torn his clothes and put on sackcloth and ashes, and is crying out bitterly with a loud voice. Let's hear from our Luigi.
I'm here in front of the king's gate where Mordecai has just been wailing and weeping. He did come here for a reason, because no one can enter the king's gate clothed in sackcloth and ashes. I believe he came here to get the attention of Esther. Esther's maids and eunuchs told her about Mordecai and she became deeply distressed. She sent garments to clothe Mordecai, but he refused them. I have here with me Hatak, one of the servants who attends to Queen Esther. Hatak, you will have more insight to the conversations between Mordecai and Esther.
Yes, Queen Esther was deeply distressed when she was told of Mordecai weeping and in sackcloth and ashes. She sent the maids with clothes to clothe Mordecai, but he would not accept them.
Queen Esther must have been more distressed about Mordecai when he refused the clothes she sent.
Of course, the queen called me aside and commanded me to find out from Mordecai what and why he was mourning. I went out and found Mordecai and told him the queen's command. Mordecai told me all that has happened and the sum of money that Haman had promised to pay into the king's treasuries to destroy the Jews. He even gave me a copy of the decree to destroy all the Jews, so I can show the queen and that she would go to the king, make a request and plead before him for her people. It was then that I had come to know that Queen Esther is a Jew.
What was the queen's reaction to what you found out from Mordecai and her answers to Mordecai's command?
Well, the queen sent me back with a message to Mordecai. In fact, I have it here with me. Let me read the queen's reply. All the king's servants and the people of the king's provinces know that any man or woman who goes into the inner court to the king without being summoned will be put to death, unless the king holds out his golden scepter, and then his life will be spared. Even I myself have not been called to go into the king for 30 days.
Please go on. We would like to hear Mordecai's response to the queen.
I'm sorry to interrupt, gentlemen, but we will take a quick break before hearing Mordecai's response. I can imagine how all the Jews are feeling right now, knowing that on a certain day they will all be put to death. We will now have a little health segment.
Welcome back. We will go straight to Luigi in the citadel of Shushan to hear of Mordecai's response to the queen's message.
So Mordecai told us to say to the queen, "Do not think in your heart that you will escape in the king's palace any more than all the other Jews. For if you remain completely silent at this time, relief and deliverance will arise from the Jews from another place. But you and your father's house will perish. Yet who knows whether you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this?" The queen then sprung into action. She commanded Mordecai to gather all the Jews who are presented here in Shushan to fast for her. They must not eat or drink for 3 days, and the queen and her maids will do the same. Queen Esther then said, "And so I will go to the king, which is against the law, and if I perish, I perish."
Wow, I want to cheer Esther on. However, it is time for us to also take time to present ourselves before God in a special procession.
sinogudi pulang long hands. By passing my long Yumi, long Luke seven long God.
Yes, the soul and road long Yumi, road long me. Knock and loose, ding ding long and long life, long Yumi, I'll get a time. Knock and laring, passing long ground. By kissing Yumi and long hand. Yes, the soul, Hemina road.
Yumi looking finis, na Yumi harem finis. Life in Nogan hamamas long hand. By Yumi yosem one and by Yumi look long side. Time brownie pull up, long passing no good.
Yes, the soul and road long you, na road long me. Knock and loose, ding ding long and long life, long you, me, I'll get a time. Knock and laring, passing long ground. By kissing you, me out long and yes, the soul, Emina road. Yes, the soul and road long you, na road long me. Knock and loose, ding ding long and long life, long you, me, I'll get a time. Knock and laring, passing long ground. By kissing you, me out long hand. Yes, the soul, Emina road. Knock and laring, passing long ground. By kissing you, me out long hand. Yes, the soul, Emina road. Yes, the soul, Emina road.
The Jews in Shushan have fasted for 3 days, and so did Queen Esther and her maids.
On the third day of fasting, Queen Esther put her royal robes and entered the inner court of the king's palace without being summoned.
Now remember, anyone who enters the inner court of the king without being summoned will be put to death immediately, unless the king holds out his golden scepter.
When the king saw Queen Esther, he held out his golden scepter, and the queen approached and touched the top of the scepter and was saved from death.
King Ahasuerus asked Esther to reveal her request then, but she then invited the king and Haman to a banquet that she is hosting.
Haman the Agagite has just been hung on the gallows he prepared for Mordecai, and the Jews have been saved by Queen Esther. What a turn of events! Queen Esther finally revealed her true identity, family, and her people to the king. On the last night of her banquet, she pleaded with the king to spare her people, the Jews, from getting killed by Haman and his men. The king was filled with so much rage and ordered Haman to be hanged. I have here with me the queen herself. Thank you, your royal highness, for taking this time for an interview. You have saved the Jews.
First of all, I would like to make it clear that it is my God who has delivered my people. I believe my God placed me here in the king's palace for a greater purpose. That is to be an instrument for him, for the deliverance of his people, the Jews. When cousin Mordecai sent the message to approach King Ahasuerus, he was really challenging me to make a choice, stay silent or save our people. So I made a choice. I trusted God and approached the king. Just like my ancestors, Joseph and Daniel, the Lord placed me where He wanted me to be, so that I could be an instrument for Him in saving the lives of hundreds of thousands of my people. Cousin Mordecai was right. I was placed in this kingdom for such a time as this.
Thank you, Luigi, for keeping us updated with the latest in the citadel of Sushan. It has been our pleasure to share the story of the little Jewish orphan girl who became Queen of Persia with you.
Yes, indeed, Peter. We would like to thank you all for tuning into our AY special this afternoon.
Just before we sign off, Tamai has some closing remarks to share with us, and then a special music will follow.
In closing, friends, we have characters in the Bible who have surrendered themselves to the work of God. Two of which I would like to highlight is Moses and Esther. Moses, to begin with, was reluctant, but things changed when he accepted the call. In 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verses 9 and 10, "But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore I will boast all the more gladly of my weaknesses, so that the power of Christ may rest upon me. For the sake of Christ, then, I am content with weaknesses, insults, hardships, persecutions, and calamities. For when I am weak, then I am strong." Moses only sees his weaknesses, but God sees the good in him and strengthens him. And in Jeremiah chapter 32, verse 27 says, "Behold, I am the Lord, the God of all flesh. Is there anything too hard for me?" And dear friends, Moses witnessed the strength of God as he went forward with God to deliver God's people. Esther, the little unknown orphan girl, brought up by her cousin Mordecai. In Esther chapter 2, verse 20, says, "Esther had not made known her kindred or her people, as Mordecai had commanded her. For Esther obeyed Mordecai just as when she was brought up by him." Here, brethren, is a perfect example of the importance of upbringing. The way she was brought up played an important part in her role as queen. Her past helped shape her future. Her decision-making, and culminating in the fact that she was willing to sacrifice her life for her people. Friends, our past, though imperfect it may be, our experiences with the Lord has placed us here in our different communities, in a different country, to bring the good news of salvation. As the Apostle Paul's letter to Timothy says, "Do your best to present yourself to God as one approved, a worker who has no need to be ashamed, rightly handling the word of truth." And in the previous chapter, in 2 Timothy chapter 1, verses 8 and 9, it says, "Therefore do not be ashamed of the testimony about our Lord, nor of me, his prisoner, but share in the suffering for the gospel by the power of God, who saved us and called us to a holy calling, not because of our works, but because of his own purpose and grace, which he has given us in Jesus Christ." Friends, there is no need to be ashamed of testifying about the Lord, who saved us and called us to a holy calling. In Esther chapter 4, verse 14, it says, "For if you keep silent at this time, relief and deliverance will arise from the Jews from another place. But you and your father's house will perish. And who knows whether you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this." Friends, we cannot remain silent any longer. For if we do, deliverance of our families, of our neighbors, of our communities, of our country, and of our world will arise from another place. And who knows whether you and I have come to the United Kingdom for such a time as this.
In the palace of the King, our vessels for Him, fit to be used for service. Some are made of finest gold, of wood and miry clay, fit to be used for service. I'm an instrument in the Master's hands. I'm an instrument to serve the human race. I'm an instrument whatever men may say. I'm an instrument in His hands. Oh my own, nothing at all, hopeless without a purpose, till the great physician came.